of the clock out cure. There was a time when quitting your job was seen as an almost entirely negative thing, but these days it's become more accepted that saying no is both brave and healthy. So for those who can afford it, quitting has become the ultimate form of self-care. So we are diving into this debate for today's TNT Chat. I find it interesting, T, that you and I are both sitting here talking about quitting when it's probably the last thing we would ever do. We both come from, like, I don't know if I'd be able to visit my parents anymore if I told them I quit the job. They'd be like, but why? Were they beating you? Like, why did you leave? But here's the thing. Even though I always have a backup plan, I always have an exit plan, you and I have talked about this. If for some reason I got kicked out of this place, I'm going to H&M and Zara and putting in an application across the street. Then I'm going to get on the streetcar. I'm going to go to the nearest network and see if I can be an overnight or weekend anchor. Like, I'm not coming home without a job, okay? But you know what? COVID has changed me. I feel like if you can afford to and you feel abused, you feel like the job just isn't working for you anymore, you feel your mental health is struggling, I think it's time to come up with an exit plan. And you know what? Get out. If you can afford to get out, you should get out. What do you think, T?
I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. I'm kind of mixed on this because, like you said, like I come from a different background. We both come from the same background where it's like work, work, work. So I have the one side that says to me, this is a good thing, right? Like the older generation, like every generation gets louder and louder with their voice, right? Mm-hmm. So before we came, a few generations ago, women weren't even allowed to have their say. So yes, it's better that they're getting a voice and people are speaking up more. And I also think the old generation sometimes hung in too long and things, right? They hang in marriages too long, jobs too long. They just hung in too long, and they kind of wear that as a badge of honor, right? Like, I stayed there for 25 years, and it's like, yeah, but you didn't like it. So I understand that side, but at the other side, I understand, like, I also think that the old generation, we shouldn't judge them because they didn't have the luxury of all these choices. I think the newer generation is supported a lot more by their parents financially. So I think the older generation didn't have money being given to them. They had to stay in jobs that they didn't want to. So we shouldn't maybe judge them as much. And I also think with the newer generation, yes, they are more boisterous in saying what they want, and that's a good thing. But I also think I've seen in just a few of the younger people that I've worked with and that I know, they give up too fast. It's almost like the minute they're faced with adversity or they're uncomfortable or they don't like what's going on at work, it's like, quit. That's their answer to everything. Quit, quit, quit. And you're never going to learn lessons in life that way if you're always just ready to leave so quickly the minute something isn't going your way. Every single job you have, you're going to have adversity. There's no such thing as a job where just everything is perfect. So I'm kind of torn with it. Like, I think sometimes this next generation quits a little too easily, but at the same time, our parents' generation and before that, they hung on way too long, and they're proud of it. You know what I mean? Like, they're so proud that they hung on and they stayed so miserable, but they wear it as a badge of honor. So I guess I'm kind of in the middle with this. I think if you can afford it, you should just leave. But I don't think you should leave just because you're having a few problems at work.
Yeah, it almost needs to be, it almost needs to be like, if you have a boss that you dislike or that dislikes you, that is probably a good reason, because I've been in the situation. You can try all the workarounds in the world. Either you have to go or the boss has to go. That situation is not going to change. So I think if it's a situation like that and you can't get ahead and you can't get sponsored and you don't have any opportunities, maybe it's time to start looking elsewhere. If your mental health has been taking hits, like, I agree with you. It has to be something more on the serious side than just, oh, this is getting too hard. Let me get out and try and find something easier. And just like you, I applaud a lot of the younger generations because they're walking in and they're saying, you know, I'm 25 years old, but I'm probably going to be pregnant in about a year. And when I get pregnant, I want a year off or 18 months off. Like, they're laying it all out there. And there's something, that boldness, I'm like, oh, I would never do that. And I admire them for that. On the other hand, I'm also like, you know what? Have some grit. Like, also do some work, like do some real work and stick to it and figure out if there's a way to make it work before you bail. That's my thought.
It's no surprise that me and you are in the middle here, because I think just our generation, the age range that we're in, we're kind of with one foot in each generation, right? Like, we have those parents that raised us that way, but then yet we're young enough still to kind of be around the millennials and be with technology. And so we're kind of like straddling this fence where we have one foot in and one foot out. It's a very particular weird place that we're in our age range, where we kind of see both sides to everything. We're kind of like, no, I'm going to ask for what I want, like those young kids. But then at the same time, it's like, no, I'm going to be like my older generation. Like, we're kind of like, we're confused. We're in the middle. It's the same thing with technology. It's like, this is stupid. I don't want to be on social media. But then at the same time, we understand that we need it in order to, and here we are, and we need it, right? So it's like, we just have this duality that's really strange. It's kind of, it's confusing.
It's confusing, and I would say that it's almost a bit of a blessing, because I like the fact that we're sort of dealing with the tools that, you know, we had growing up. We had like a pad and a pen and you know, like a crayon and a pencil. Like, we started with those things, and then it became like smartphones and laptops and everything. So I think it's kind of cool to have both. And I think that at the end of the day, like, I talk a big, bold game about, yeah, if you're unhappy, you should quit. I'm still 90% scared. I'm still very scared. Like,
of course.
You're right. Like, I'm very scared.
That's our generation.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, it would have to be really bad for me to walk out, and I would have to have an exit plan for many, many months, and it would have to be foolproof. So I love getting your take always, T. Thank you for that. We both know neither of us are quitting anytime soon. Amazing chat as always. No.